there are Lakota stories that exist that don't really fit into what people think is the norm. And the problem is that the norm was established by Catholic priests at the beginning of the reservation. Yeah, because they told us that our star knowledge it conflicts with the Bible, so therefore it's evil. Yeah, comes from the devil. And this norm also has a good versus evil perspective too. That's the other problem. And so, concerning this Christianization process on the reservation, because of that process, our views of our own culture have become extremely limited. So when we hear something from a story that totally does not fit into that norm, then our tendency is to say that's not real. That's not a true story. Yeah, see, that's how effective that brainwashing is. But these stories are old. They do exist, yeah, and they do talk. It makes you wonder. It also tells you how long we've been here, because there's stories that talk about these beasts, and that they were troublesome to people. That said it right there, that they were troublesome to people. That means we were there around the same time. We were there when they disappeared, because we played a role in their disappearance. And in those areas that they disappeared, the early humans, they herded those beasts to these locations because they were really a nuisance. Yeah, they were killing many people. And so we found a way to push them to certain locations, and then we massacred them. Yeah, so these beasts don't exist anymore. It was not a comet from outer space. It was a human thing. Yeah, and these locations. See, whenever a massacre happens someplace, there's an energy that's left behind that affects everything, including the plants. Yeah, the way things grow. It includes how it affects people. So the instruction back then was to not live in those areas. These giant beasts that existed on the earth, there's words for them, and these words describe them in Lakota. And like I was saying, when a massacre occurs or something really violent occurs someplace, it leaves an energy behind. Yeah, the act of that, whatever it is, whether it's a massacre or a rape or a murder or whatever, it leaves an energy behind, a residue. And if that is not neutralized, it could make people sick when they come to that area. Yeah, and so these areas, there's several areas on the earth where these beasts were taken and massacred in huge numbers. And so in these locations, the law was that people should not live there because of that residue. It's too great. It's too damaging. And so people shouldn't live there. And even the animals themselves, see, remember, they were troublesome. They caused trouble all the time. They're contentious. They themselves had an energy too. So that's the reason why people were told not to live in those areas. So people stayed away from there. Yeah, and so it's really just very few Lakota people know the stories. Yeah, and very few Lakota people realize that this is where all the oil is in the world. So when humans are trying to get this out, you see what it's doing? It's releasing that energy on the earth. It's spreading all over the earth. So think about that. Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah. I'll let you think about that. Anyway, yeah, I was talking about these stories that don't fit the norm, and what I was saying earlier is that the norm was actually established by Catholic priests. When they learned, as I said earlier, yeah, when they learned our stories and they said they conflict with the Bible, so that means they come from the devil and they're evil. So they only were talking about certain stories and just very limited number of stories. And within that limited number of stories, they sanitized it. They took out a lot of things from the stories, and then they substituted that with a good versus evil concept. So that's why I say they tainted the stories. They took things out, they took vital information out, and then they put in a good versus evil concept, a hero and the villain thing, way of thinking, and that's duality, as I said earlier. So most Indians know that kind of thing today. So when they hear stories like this giant snake that lives in such and such area, or when they realize that there's an elk dreamer and an elk man are two different things, they find it hard to believe. Yeah, or when if I say to them there's no such thing as bad spirits, so they find that hard to believe because of of the programming, yeah, that happened from the early 1900s time. So that's another reason why I have this show, is to try to influence you to step out of what you think is normal and just check it out, because what you think is normal might have been programmed by something else because of the way you were raised and things like that. Yeah, and it's just to explore and learn. Yeah, that's the whole reason. Because if you just stay with the norm, remember this norm was created by Catholic priests and Christian priests. So if you just stay within there, you're not really gonna progress. You're not really going to develop, because the norm is dualistic. Yeah. So if you just stay with those stories, it's really painting an incorrect view of the universe. Yeah. It's incomplete view of the universe. Therefore, it's incorrect. Okay. So that's why I talk about these things, and I know that some Lakota people who listen to this show, they don't believe what I say and they disagree, and that's fine. I'm not out to change anybody's mind. All I'm asking is that you think about this stuff, yeah, to think about these things and see what you come up with, yeah. And I'm not the only one who talks about these things. There are other people too, and see these stories, since the stories from Star Knowledge are outside the norm. You're not going to find them in books. Not too many books talk about them. Yeah, there's just just a handful of books that talk about these kind of things. So this is something to keep in mind. And see, even within the Bible, I mean, that's limited too. Yeah, because people say at Revelations and that's it. God stopped talking after Revelations. See, that's closing things in too, and why would that be? Yeah, why would that be like that? So, but that's a dualistic book anyway. So I'm just saying that even within dualism, there's limitations. Yeah, and incompleteness. So, just think about it like that. Yeah, to be open. Yeah, just be open-minded, and it's all part of this, taking the time to check something out. It's not meant to change you or to influence you in any way, but just to think about it. That's all, and then it's up to you. Yeah, what you want to do. Because for me, growing up, I knew certain things, that I heard and concerning stories like the white buffalo calf pipe. And as I got older, I learned the complete story, and I was like, "Holy shit! This really puts it in a different light." Um, for those of you that know the White Buffalo Calfpipe story, the part where the two Lakota guys are standing on a hill, and this woman comes to them. One of them wanted to have sex with her immediately, and he saw her naked. Yeah, she was a representation of what he was like inside, and she was also a representation to what the other guy was like inside, and he was pure in heart. So he saw her, something glowing and white around her. That's how he saw her. So he knew she was something sacred. The other guy saw her as naked, and he wanted to have sex with her right away. So she said to the men to do what they want to do. So the guy that saw her as a sacred being, he bowed himself. Yeah, he what do you call it? He prostrated himself before her, acknowledging that she's sacred. The other guy went and reached out and tried to touch her, and he tried to have sex with her. And when he did this, she consumed him. Yeah, meaning that something on her literally consumed him, literally ate up and destroyed his flesh. So all that was left was skeleton and his hair, his fingernails, the toenails. That's all that was left. And there were rattlesnakes going through his ribs. And then at that time, there were no rattlesnakes in that area. So this represents his unhealthiness. What do you think it was on her that consumed him? Well, just think about sexual intercourse, okay? And you should be able to figure it out from there without me saying outrightly what it was. See, that's in the story, the original story. And when Indians became dualized, they left that out. They didn't want people to know that. You know, she can't be that way. She has to be like Jesus. Everything has to be perfect about her. See, they had this as good versus evil concept. And when in reality, this wasn't about good versus evil at all. Do you see what I mean? To learn the complete version of stories, you have to be, if you're healthy, if you're emotionally healthy, then you won't see things as good versus evil. Then when you hear these stories, it don't bother you, but instead you'll go like, wow. Yeah, you see what it represents. The dualized version, they say, yeah, this cloud came down and destroyed this man because he was a bad man, and the other guy was a good man. Yeah, you see, that's dualistic. But what the original version doesn't say that. Yeah, the original version says what I just said. So, what this is saying is, see, the man was addicted. He was addicted to sex. And what this is saying is that your addiction, if you don't try to do something about it, your addiction is going to lead to your death. Addiction is the road to death, not life. So that's what it's teaching. Yeah, it's teaching what duality is. You see the difference? Just think about that, and think, how much of this Christian influence is still in you when you think about that. And you have to open yourself up to be willing to accept. And some people say, well, that's not the way my grandpa said it. Your grandpa was wrong. Because your grandpa was born at a time when the reservation was extremely Christian. And even though he might have been speaking Lakota, he was being influenced greatly because people were weak-minded back then. Remember what I said, how that happened? They're just human. Your grandparents, your elders are not gods. They are not perfect. They still make mistakes. So you have to really, you have to keep those things in mind. Respecting the elders doesn't mean believe everything they say. It doesn't mean that they're always right. It doesn't mean you have to do what they say. That's not respect. That's oppression. Respect means you let people say whatever they want to say, even if you disagree. And when you don't say anything, you just walk away. And then if they want to hear what you think, then you say what you think. But as long as you don't try to force each other, to accept the other one's views, you'll be okay. One of my uncles was like a father to me. His name was Uncle Jake. Because my parents divorced when I was 2 years old, and we came back to her reservation. And my uncle, when I was going through my teenage years, and I was doing really stupid things, and my uncle came to me one time. He said, "David, I'd like to talk with you. Is that okay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, this is happening, and whatever." And then he said, "I just want you to hear me." He said, "That's all." He said, I'm not telling you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I want you to just hear what I have to say." He said, "What you're doing, this path that you're on, I've been on there." I said, "And this is what's going to happen. If you're not careful, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to change your life forever." And he said, "You're really young, and you have the world in front of you. And there's so many wonderful things out there, so many experiences waiting for you, so many, and to achieve education at university and all these nice things. That's going to go away if you continue to be on this road," he said. And I said, "Okay." See, that's the way to do it. He didn't say, "David, you better do it this way. You need to do this. You need to do." He didn't say it like that. And so the way he said it, he really made me think about it. The way he presented it, it influenced me to think about it. If he had come in and just said, "David, don't stop doing that. You better do it this way or else," then I would have said, "Go to hell," and then everything would have went out the window. Because that's not respect. But the way he did it was very respectful, so I respected him back. And I said, "Yeah, thank you." I said, "I will think about it." And then I didn't do it. And everything he said that would happen, happened. So you see, and I still made the mistake, but he at the same time he told me, "Don't worry, so you can still make the best out of it." And I did. Yeah. So, but it was still respectful. Yeah, because if he had done it another way, I probably would have ended up in a worse situation than I did. You see what I mean? So that's respect. Respect is not saying, "You respect me," That's oppression. That's not respect. Yeah, so a lot of people on the res, they don't understand that. They all think that. "Well, I was raised by my elder, so you respect me." See, that's not respect. That's not respect to talk like that. That's setting yourself above others, and that's oppression. And that's duality. That is not respect. That violates respect. And it violates humility as well, because you're saying you're better. The wisest person will never say he's better than others, because he knows that that's breaking humility. Just think of it like that. Okay? All right. Anyway, I got food waiting for me. So I'm going to go for it. And I'll take you guys out with some music. I thank you very kindly for taking time to tune into this show. I'll be here tomorrow. Same time, same place, same face, but clean t-shirt. And I wish you a good day. Yeah, good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this. Have a nice weekend. If I don't see you again, thank you for taking time to listen to the show. And all I ask is that you think about the things that I say. I don't ask you to believe me. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just asking you to consider this information, because this is coming from the ancestors. It's not coming from me. Okay? This is their information, not mine. But it can be our tradition too. It's a human tradition. It's a human way to live. Okay? With each other, in peace, learning from one another, respecting each other's differences without trying to change each other, and communicating in a healthy way. Okay? So just think about it, nothing more. And with that, in our way, there's no word for goodbye in Lakota language because everything is circular. It always comes back around again. So instead we say until next time, which in Lakota is Tok Sha A Ke.